What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon, pre-noon. No matter where you are in the world, I'm Hasan Piker, and this is Hasan, our broadcast coming to you live from rainy California, Los Angeles. Folks, we're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one because today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. In spite of the rain, it's a big day today, and there is a lot to talk about, folks. Oh, my God. Holy Toledo, ladies and gentlemen.
Holy Toledo.
We have so much to talk about, so much to discuss. It's Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Sunday fun day for Hungary. Majaristan has a very interesting day ahead of itself. We got elections happening there. Will a guy whose last name quite literally is the name of the country be able to defeat Viktor Orban? That's what I'm very excited to find out about. Fascinating day ahead of ourselves. Remember in January we said you'd take Sundays off? All right, shut up.
Bruh.
Shut up. Yeah, we got too much going on, obviously, so I can't just freaking do that. I saw Pot Save America. You did great. So many moments I was like, I hope he talks about the grapists in Israel who made them famous, and you did. And you quoted Albert Einstein. You did so great. Thank you. I went to the lion's den of liberalism, and I spoke convincingly about why I say the things I say about Hamas and how I compare Hamas to Israel and say Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. So that was, I think, fairly instructive for a lot of liberals. I think it'll be a good opportunity for a lot of liberals and normies to just see what my perspective is, what our perspective is really. But in any case, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and ebbies, we got a lot going on. Ezra Klein's article came out as well. This is me being a chud-ass loser. Doesn't change the reality that, I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning, and I felt like a disturbance of the force. I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning, felt a disturbance of the force, looked at my phone, boom, right there. The king of liberals, Ezra motherfucking Klein, the king of liberals, wrote an article defending me, saying I'm not an anti-Semite and that people are fucking insane, which is awesome. This is going to be a very bad day for a lot of centrist liberals who have desperately tried to maintain their grip of control, their grip of influence, their grip of power over the Democratic Party in an environment where there are a lot of people who are who demand more from the Democrats. So that was the conversation for the last 3 weeks, and it's obviously coming to a close. And there are concessions being given right now. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. I never thought we would get there. Anyway, are you going on Israel's show now? I mean, I'm talking to him, so we'll figure it out. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, you didn't tweet all night. Proud of you, Chud. Yeah, it's because what did I do last night? I didn't do shit. I did an interview with Prem. That's why. I did an interview with Prem Talker for Zateo, Day in the Life, and it was actually very interesting. The New York Times changed the title from Hasan is not the enemy back on the list, big dog. Wait, what did they change the title to? Because that was a good title. Hasan Piker is not the enemy. President level motion for this base king currently streaming. It's a concession by Klein. Beware of libs in sheep's clothing. I don't care. That's a good thing. You have to. This is why there's no liberal Joe Rogan. Okay, that's a fine title as well. But that's good. You guys don't understand how politics works, I don't think. You should understand how politics works. This is how politics works. This is a good thing. Okay, this is absolutely a good thing. This is a healthy thing. There's healthy friction existing in the Democratic Party. They probably would have done a better job if they just never addressed this issue and just kept people like ourselves on the sidelines. But they chose to fight this battle over a pivotal race, Abdul al-Sayed's race, and won. I think that's fantastic because it's fantastic for two reasons. Okay, number one, it gave much needed media attention to this Michigan Senate race that Abdul wasn't getting because he's a phenomenal candidate. Okay, that's number one. Number two, this is a healthy conversation to have. It's healthy friction that is taking place in the Democratic Party. I'm going to be talking about all of this and more. But first, personal news-wise, I'm in a pretty goddamn good mood. It's raining, but I'm in a good mood regardless because I worked out today. this morning, and in my workout, I've been experiencing like really bad gains, like just a loss of strength for like the past couple of months or so. Finally, it's picking back up. I'm finally back up to 300, 295 technically on the squats as my top set. So that's good because I'm 34. I'm about to be 35 in July, right? So for me, it's been really tough trying to both lose weight, keep the weight off, and sit at a fairly significant deficit while also making sure that I don't lose my gains. Now, the reason why I kept losing them is because I got the coveted folks tweet from Dave Weigel. Okay, he's joking, obviously, but like
I hate.
But this will do numbers with lib moms. By the way, I know there are white wine moms in the countryside that are gonna see this and lose their minds. Be like, why can't every Democrat talk like this? This is exactly what we need right now. Because this is how I feel. And this is the real me. When I'm fucked up, that's the real me. You know what I mean? This is the pivotal message for a lot of Democratic Party voters who face themselves to be centrists, right? Like, but aren't actually centrist at all. So we'll obviously go through the Pod John's interview. 80,000 views in 5 hours, not bad. And we'll see where it goes. But every time I do Pod Save America, especially with John, every time I do that, usually a lot of new liberals who are fans of the Pod Johns will hear my perspective and go, oh my God, this is what the fuck? Like, why can't we have more people that talk like this? Right. And there's a good reason for it. It's because most of the mainstream media want those people to encounter me for the first time ever in short bursts, right? 10-second increments. I don't stream for 10 seconds. I stream for 10 hours, right? And this would have been very successful. This would have been very successful 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It certainly was successful against Bernard Sanders, right? It's no longer successful because independent media is uncontrollable and is not interested in abiding by whatever standards that mainstream institutions want to apply. In any case, ceasefire fails. JD comes home. U.S. wants to blockade the Hormuz, Lamau. Ezra Klein defends me as centrist Dems concede on tent expansion to the left. Situation monitored. Epstein's Fury Day 43. New York City tomorrow. Yale Tuesday. Get in now. Bowden socialists have Mahmoud Mamdani coming to school. Also, Aphex Twizzy, I know your ass invited me to, or someone I think someone invited me as well. What are you guys trying to like get all the people in like the Zohran Mamdani orbit? Because you know your ass can't get Zohran, so you're trying to get his dad. You're trying to get me. Your manager replied, "Yeah, I said I'd be down to do it." You ain't slick, bro. You are not slick. Also, are you trying to get the fucking chapter shut down? This is what I don't understand. Are you trying to get the chapter shut down? Because this is what's going to happen. Okay? This is what's going to happen. You want me to come on that campus? Is Zoran's dad mogging you? Yale, a demonic place. Please destroy the skull and bones. Geronimo's skull. Yeah, okay. Will do. But anyway, Orban L, ceasefire fails. JD comes home. All this stuff. We got so much to talk about today. It's a jam-packed Sunday. Normally, I don't even stream on Sundays. Normally, Sundays are fun days, but obviously today is going to be a heavy news day. Apologies for all of the fun day enjoyers because obviously we have to cover the situation. We have to monitor the situation. A lot going on with said situation, right? Hawkeye with the butt. Bro, you're always streaming. True. Stop saying you have fun, man. I mean, this is fun for me. Bro, it's EF day 44, not 43. It started on February 28th, day 1. Added 31 days for March, goes 32. Don't stress, big dog. Maybe we just have a different way of doing the calculation. You know what I mean? I don't really care who's stressing the numbers at this point. You know what I mean? What's the difference between 44 and 43? You know, It's all shit anyway, right? Glad you're in a good mood, Chipper. Yeah, you want to know why I'm in a good mood and I'm chipper? Because for the last 3 years, I've been called a fucking terrorist nonstop by dumb shitters on the internet who desperately want to be recognized by the centrist flank of the Democratic Party, who have actively made it their lives' mission to present me as this spoiler, as this bad guy. And now you have one of the top dogs on the liberal side that every centrist leans into, that every Democratic voter listens to, that treats his word like the gospel, turning around and out of nowhere, by the way, literally out of nowhere. I had no idea that this was coming. Ironically enough, I had talked to Noah Colwin about potentially, doing some possible media hits in like on Jewish papers, right? He was like, "Oh, you should do Jewish Currents." I'd be talking to Peter Beinart. Anyway, Peter Beinart reached out to me a while back. I said, "Yeah, let's do it." But I always told Noah, I was like, what would be the best possible way to have this conversation is with Ezra Klein, who is the king of liberals and also the king of like liberal Zionism as well, right? Because that would be a very productive conversation. I know that he would most likely have a very open-minded conversation with someone like me, just like he did with Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? So from that perspective, this is like, this is the greatest. He just did it on his own. I thought I would be able to like reach out to him and do a podcast with him, but turns out wasn't even necessary. He just wrote it himself. How is it that the comment section from the Ross Douthat segment was a million times more charitable than the Ezra piece? I don't know what the comment section looks like, but they probably flooded it. But yeah, I don't even need to worry about the ADL because the person who's going to be cooking my ass is going to be Z-Way today, or well, tomorrow. So, that's where we're at. Your perseverance through every bit of bullshit these past 3 years is truly incredible. Beyond good seeing your tide rising, Papa. Yeah, I mean, this is not just about me and my reputation and the reputational damage I incurred. That's irrelevant. That's secondary, right? As long as I have you, none of that shit matters. As long as I can still have a platform that I can say the truth on, and I'll keep pushing, right? But this is a very consequential change. The reason why it's a very consequential change is because this is a concession, an open concession from a liberal who is, very important in the liberal intelligentsia, who approached the issue with charitability and said, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's not just about me. It's about this movement. Said we have to align with these guys. That's huge. Because remember, initially, the conversation was like, Hasan is bad. Democrats need to stay away from him, And what did I tell you? What did I tell you at the time? I was like, this ain't about me. This is about you. This is about all of us. This is about a change that is happening in the Democratic Party, who the Democrats should be more responsive to, right? What issues the Democrats need to highlight and need to lead on, not just Israel, but Medicare for all as well, right? Economic left populism. These are things that I advocate for, and the collection of all of those resentments is precisely what the establishment feared. The establishment wanted to push aside, right? They wanted to make sure that they never had to have that conversation. They didn't want to talk about the message, so they wanted to shoot the messenger and disparage the messenger. Because the moment that you talk about that message, all of a sudden people are going to be like, wait a minute, I do agree with that. Now I feel like you're yelling at me, right? So this is a huge step in that direction. I think this is a first of many significant concessions to the left flank, okay? Very consequential. And we only got here because all of you stood strong and you were steadfast in your approach, in your advocacy, said, nah, we're not doing that. We're not playing that fucking game, right? And here we are. Here we are. In any case, I suspect that some liberals will take this lightly and will wave the white flag quietly. I saw Trey Easton of Searchlight Institute straight up saying, you know what, that's right, we're good, right? We're good. We should be done with it, right? We should be done with this shit. We shouldn't be fighting with Hasan. Why are we doing it anyway? Like, he says something along those lines, right? Which was really funny to hear, because he's been, one of the diehard, he's been one of the diehard, most frustrated individuals on this issue, right? He said, I don't think Hasan Piker is the enemy. I just wish that he and his followers didn't treat the Democratic Party like it's their enemy. Never Trumpers exist in the Democratic coalition without repeatedly bashing the party and demanding it take specific stances in exchange for their votes. If this is how he'd like to be treated, he should consider adjusting his own posture. See, this is the problem. Never Trumpers don't even need to make those concessions. They don't need to make those demands because the Democrats already leaned into that. That's the problem. That's the reason why we're having this conversation. If the Democrats were more responsive, if the Democrats were more responsive to our demands, and our demands are the popular demands, our demands expand far beyond the people that tune in and watch me here every day, far beyond people who watch the TikTok clips and agree, far beyond the people who go on YouTube and only watch the clips. Our demands are popular demands that many Americans across the board, people who've never fucking voted for the Democrats, people who self-identify as independents, and even Republicans living in the countryside, these are their demands as well. So not only is this good politics, it's good policy, but it's also good politics, sorry. Not only is this good policy, it's helpful in advancing people's material conditions. If you were standing proudly and saying, we are the Medicare for All party, we're gonna fix healthcare in this country, we're gonna fix housing in this country, right? We are the party that says fuck Israel, right? Like, that is a broadly populist message, right? So it's not even the Democrats being responsive to us and our needs. We're not like petulant children on the side, demanding this shit for no reason. We want the Democrats to push for these policies because it'll also win elections, ensure that Republicans never win again, and last but not least, it will improve people's material conditions. That's what is the most important, most consequential aspect of this at the end of the day. The Never Trumpers don't need to make demands in daylight. They do behind closed doors as donors. Yup. Listen to her. I am always vindicated. Z-Way posted on our IG channel broadcast and asked people to drop questions for your appearance. And of course, Ethan Klein Cultist shared it on their sub. And they completely brigaded it with a bunch of questions about Kaya, about being pro-rape, helping Trump win, etc. There's barely any normal questions. It's the only question thread with hundreds of comments. I hope you reach out to Z-Way and let her know what's going on. Thank you for informing me. I'll do that. I'm sure she's aware. Yeah. Genuine question. Shouldn't leftists or progressive Democrats then run on a just 2% platform in regards to how much we want to tax the billionaires and deal with some of these issues? I mean, whichever way it works. Just another psychosexual stalker. How do you keep catching these dudes like Pokeballs? Kamala said, be transactional. My queen.
Earlier about how people are so transactional. I think we need to be transactional voters.
I mean, not only did you make zero concessions knowing that people had your back, you deserve this victory lap. Your convictions and strong moral standings keep getting vindicated. This whole past month was one big Streisand moment for the race in your profile. Yup.
I think, yes, it is right when we are trying to get folks to register to vote and to go vote. And it is absolutely right that we remind everyone of our history, especially when they're trying to erase it. We remind people of the lives, the bloodshed on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the sacrifice of those young people at the lunch counter, the assassination of Dr. King. There are so many things that we must remember about history so that what compels us to vote includes not only our civic duty, but honoring the ancestors. Yes, and here's what I'm suggesting in addition. Get yours. Vote and say, I'm voting because I expect something out of this. You're not going to take for granted that I'm going to vote because I'm a good citizen and it's my civic duty to vote, so that you don't even worry about whether you're producing what I need because, oh, we can count on them to vote because they remember the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I'm saying it's okay to also give people permission to be transactional and to say, if you're going to get my vote, this is what I expect.
Yeah. $50,000 in tax credits for small businesses. No Medicare for all. No end to the genocide. This is what we want. This is what we want. This is how we must be transactional, okay?
I'm going to vote because I expect to get something out of this. I'm going to get mine by voting. That's what I would offer. I think it's okay to give people permission to be transactional voters.
Yeah, when I said this about Kamala Harris's election, everybody yelled at me, by the way. So what's up? She literally thought get yours was going to be a huge applause line. I just don't understand, because like this is literally what I was saying. This is at the heart of theoretical democracy. This is the principle. This is the fundamental aspect of the democratic process. Voting is a transactional experience. Voting is not given, is earned. Votes are earned by Democrats. Okay. And that is at the heart of my frustration. Okay. That's at the heart of my frustration with the Democratic Party, which I addressed. I brought up in my Pod Johns episode. Very excited to watch that with you guys soon as well. But yeah, why do you always do the illegal thing of being right too early? What the hell is wrong with you? Are you evil or something? Yes, I am evil. I am evil. Okay. That's what it is. That's what it motherfucking is. Okay. Anyway, let's get started on this. This is why there's no liberal Joe Rogan. Now, originally the title was, this is why there's a Dr. Jihad. Just kidding. The original title was Hasan Piker is not your enemy, right? Hasan Piker is not your enemy was the original title here. And a lot of people are picking some choice quotes out of this. Okay. Great piece overall. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to read it with you guys, and a necessary one, and one that is ultimately very consequential, and one that also vindicates me even in this community, because for years, a lot of you have been very angry at Ezra Klein for good reason. I have my disagreements with Ezra Klein. I've let him know. I've let him be known time and time again, but I always maintain the position that he is far more responsive and far more open-minded than the average liberal is, right? Like I've always said, I don't know what it is about Ezra Klein, but I think there's something about Ezra Klein that you know, regardless of his liberalism, he's not as firmly planted his heels on the gospel of neoliberalism, or at least like he's more open-minded to and more responsive to, you know, what the fuck is actually going on, right? I said, I have my differences in opinion with Ezra Klein, but I appreciate this thoughtfulness on the discussion around reducing ideological opponents to 10-second quotes, platforming, and of course, the reality that the Israel discourse has shifted out of the old constructs mainstream media clings onto, right? This was the most hypocritical post. You live in tropes, sound bites, and racism is an anti-American neo-baby. Neo-baby? What is a neo-baby? I'm a neo-baby? Like a baby that just is a new kind of baby? The fuck's this guy saying? Jim Walden got so mad. He didn't write Nepo baby. He wrote Neo baby, who wants Marxism but chose to come back to America rather than going to Lebanon, Gaza, or remaining in Turkey. I say this plainly. America doesn't deserve ... you. Yeah, I mean, I don't think America deserves me, but America got me, baby. You know what I mean? That's Vicky Palladino's lawyer. Yeah, it is pretty funny. Opposite of a paleo baby. Yeah, true. Stop coping. He got you good, Unk. Yeah, he destroyed me. He called me a neo baby. I've never heard that before. I do not like that Ezra basically says in the article that ethnostates are a normal thing. Yeah, we have our disagreements, okay? You pick and choose. You pick and choose. All right? It's fine. You have to understand. He's not going to come out and write an article and be like, Yahya Sinwar is you know, like vindicated or something. He's not going to do that. Like, what are you, fucking nuts? This is a important moment because he is, in many respects, saying the truth. Okay. And unfortunately, in this day and age, saying the truth requires courage. It's important. It's an important step in the right direction. I'm not going to fucking cast aside. I'm not going to just like shit on him for doing that. Okay. I'm not going to shit on him for doing that, especially when he could have just as easily leaned in or never said anything about this, or just as easily leaned into the same exact narratives over and over again. This is an important step in the right direction. Okay. This is an important step in the right direction. You have to be more graceful and more gracious when you receive these kinds of gifts, okay? Because sometimes if everyone is lying, saying the truth is a gift, okay? I mean, ethno-states are a fairly normal thing. Unfortunately, a lot of states are ethno-states, but Israel's unique part is being an ethno-state while occupying an equal number of people who are not of that ethnicity. Yes. Also, ethno-states are not good regardless and are inherently self-defeating. One of the best examples of this is obviously Japan, right? That's Japan is destroying itself in order to maintain its ethno-state status. So what more do you want to see? I mean, there are living, breathing examples of how, the maintenance of an ethno-state ends up being totally untenable, right? All right, this is why there's no liberal Joe Rogan. Let's get started. It's a 12-minute, 55-second article. After the 2024 elections, there was panic among Democrats about the absence of a liberal Joe Rogan. Could one be found? Could one be created? It was an epic exercise in missing the point. You cannot have a liberal Joe Rogan because Rogan is not particularly political. His audience cohered around conversations with comedians, MMA fighters, bodybuilders, and psychonauts. That's what made him politically influential. He could reach millions of people who were not otherwise interested in politics. The problem Democrats actually had, one of them anyway, was that they didn't like Rogan and criticize others for going on his show. They tried repeatedly to cancel him for his comments about trans people, his skepticism about COVID vaccines, to the extent that he is now a right-coded figure. It's not because he started that way. Rogan's political views are mixed. He backed Bernie Sanders in 2020. He supports universal health care and abortion rights. He dislikes vaccine mandates and lacks border control. But it shouldn't have been a surprise when, after years being attacked by the left, he endorsed Donald Trump in 2024. The simplest way to tell people which side they're on is to tell them how much your side hates them. Now, I don't even fully agree with this assessment, right? Although I agree with the spirit of being a little bit more tactful in the way that we communicate. And this is something that the left also absolutely needs to understand, internalize when you're trying to build a fucking coalition. Because think about it this way. If I was, constantly bouldering Ezra Klein, I probably would have had less interest in taking a sincere look at, what I put out there, right? It's just, we do honestly have a problem sometimes where we behave very anti-socially. You don't have to make concessions. You don't have to concede on these people's worldview at all, right? Not the same as Rogan. No, I mean, I have been unbelievably critical of Joe Rogan, but there was never a moment where I was like, I can't believe Bernie Sanders would go on Joe Rogan. Whenever people brought that up, I was like, shut the fuck up. Of course he's going to go on Joe Rogan. He's trying to win, he's trying to win the election, right? Like I obviously am unbelievably critical of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan will never have me on his show for that reason, right? But the reality of the matter is it's important for people to go on Joe Rogan. I would go on Joe Rogan if asked. I would go on Tucker Carlson if asked, right? Like I don't have any issues with that at all. Many in this community would have an issue with that. They would say, you're platforming, you're normalizing him. Because, we have our moral posture, we have our convictions, and sometimes we forget that, person-to-person, peer-to-peer communication requires you to be a little bit normal and to dance around, to take the victories that you get. Okay? Joe Rogan doesn't ask people on. They asked to be on. Yeah, no, I know. That brings me to a more important than it might look controversy that has burst out over the leftist streamer Hasan Piker. He had a breakout moment over the past year as Democrats began obsessing over the absence of a liberal Joe Rogan, and Piker, who mixes leftist politics with a bro-ish aesthetic, was proffered as a possible answer, a category error, because again, the whole point of Rogan's political power is that his show mostly avoids politics. But pick over Piker's years of streaming and you can find offensive things he said, among them that America deserved 9/11, that his favorite flag is Hezbollah's, that a liberal Zionist is akin to a liberal Nazi. Now, that last two even is not, offensive to me or to many others as well. But, I guess it's offensive to the perspective of the kind-hearted liberals reading the New York Times opinion editorial section on a Sunday morning. Streamer has said offensive things isn't really a news story. But then Abdul al-Sayed, the more DSA-ish candidate in the Democratic Senate primary in Michigan, began rallying with Piker. That led Third Way, a centrist group that previously demanded that Democrats draw a line in the sand and shun Hasan Piker. and his fellow Jew haters to send a letter to al-Sayed demanding details about how closely you align with his most abhorrent views. Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the Anti-Defamation League, also known as the Apartheid Defense League, said Piker reflected the dangerous normalization of anti-Semitism in our politics. Politico then asked a number of possible 2028 Democratic hopefuls whether they would appear on Piker's show. Governor Gavin Newsom and Rahm Emanuel said they would. Representatives Ro Khanna and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez already had. Senators Cory Booker, Ruben Gallego, and Elisa Slotkin said they wouldn't. I think there's rather a lot wrapped up in this controversy, so let's take it piece by piece. Immediately goes into it and cuts away at the whole thing. He says, is Piker a Jew hater, as Third Way alleges? In an interview with the writer Aaron Regenberg, Piker addressed some of his worst comments. I find some of his answers compelling and others less so. The comparison of liberal Zionists to Nazis, for instance, is repugnant and not much improved by Piker clarifying that he opposes ethno-states. What made the Nazis notable wasn't their support for an ethno-state. Ethno-states are common. What made the Nazis notable was their effort to exterminate the Jewish people. And Piker's assertion that his opposition is to all reactionary ideology is hard to square with his admiration for Hezbollah. Okay, two things. So this is his disagreements with the way I've presented myself. Here's the issue. The reason why I say Israel is a Nazi country or Zionism is a Nazi ideology is because that is the truth. It's a reactionary, nationalistic, fascist ideology akin to Christian nationalism that we experience here in the United States of America. It's base boosted because Israel has been carrying out that violence that is the undergirding ideology of the state in order for Israel to exist as a Jewish state that is built on top of millions of Palestinians, many of which are not Jewish. You have to ethnically cleanse those Palestinians. And that's precisely how it works, right? There are plenty of states that have been designed as ethno-states or turned into ethno-states, like Japan is one of the greatest modern examples of this, right? Japan also did its own indigenous genocide in an effort to create an ethno-state, right? It's true, except modern day liberals and modern day socialists and leftists and progressives alike do not agree with those actions. Those actions of the past, just like we don't agree with the actions of the Nazis, and therefore we must not agree with the actions of Israel when it's happening in front of us, right? The whole point of learning about history, the whole point of learning about the Holocaust, the whole point of learning about, the dangers of fascism is so that we don't fucking repeat it. It's at the core of this principle. Never again means never again for all, not just never again for Jewish people, right? So that's the point. That is why I oppose it. Now, I would love to have a conversation with Ezra Klein about this particular issue because I find it very interesting that he's very thoughtful, but this is a glaringly obvious blindside that he demonstrates, and he demonstrated that with his Ta-Nehisi Coates conversation as well. I think he's moved since then as well, but even then, there's an element there. There's a blind spot there where it's like I grew up with this ideology. I learned about it, and it's like impossible for me, knowing what I know, everything that I've learned. It's impossible for me to see it as anything but. And it's a glaringly obvious moral inconsistency that he actually reveals later when he's talking about, I didn't say blind spot? What did I say? Did I say blind side? Yeah, blind spot. Turkey's pretty broadly recognized an ethno-state by scholars, but you don't see leftists defending Turkey's erasure of ethnic minorities on the regular. Exactly, and I don't do it either, right? The thing about Israel is that it is exceptional. Like, what Israel is doing is exceptional. A lot of people try to say, oh, everyone's done it, without explaining that, yeah, they did it in the 13th century, okay? Or one of the more contemporary, one of the more modern examples of this is, the Holocaust. So these are things that are roundly criticized, routinely condemned. It's one of the few things that most historians agree, alongside chattel slavery and the Holocaust, that was unbelievably evil. It's historians rarely look at events that have transpired and then turn around and offer some kind of some kind of subjective sentiment to it, or they don't say this is bad, right? Usually. But those are the two things that they openly say are bad. Aaron Regenberg also had a take on Ezra's, ethnostates existing, but we'll get to that in a second. Actually, you know what? I'll just read it. Aaron Regenberg also wrote that New Republic piece, which I never would have thought would reach Ezra Klein's eyes. So I am happy that it did, right? Because when I did that, I genuinely thought, like, I like Aaron. I think he's it's very clear that he wants to try to, like, help. I just thought that it's the New Republic. I know Daniel wrote one in The Nation as well, specifically addressing the smears, the accusations about my anti-Semitism. And both of these guys were, like, trying to, communicate to a broader audience. But it's The Nation, it's the New Republic. Like, you're preaching to the converted, right? Like, for the most part. So I didn't think that would have the impact. I mean, I'm eternally grateful for him doing so, for saying the truth, right? Because the reality of the matter is, it is objectively a courageous act. It shouldn't be, but it is a courageous act to say the truth sometimes, right? It says, I'm grateful for Ezra Klein's super thoughtful column today, and also appreciate that he referenced a piece I wrote on Hasan, but I need to make one, in my opinion, corrective point. Ezra wrote, what made the Nazis notable wasn't their support for an ethnostate. Ethnostates are common. What made the Nazis notable was their effort to exterminate the Jewish people. I think Ezra would probably agree, if push came to shove, that the Nazis were notable before their launch of the final solution in 1941. It'd be fair to say what made the Nazis most notable, but what made the Nazis notable is just not really defendable as a precise statement of fact. It's true. The mechanized death of all of the victims in the Holocaust, 6 million Jews and millions of others as well, that is what made the Nazis the most notable. But they were certainly notable before that, right? The Nazis were the Nazis in 1933 and 1935 and 1939, etc. They were bad, and they were worth opposing before they began their effort to exterminate the Jewish people. And I don't think it makes much sense to say we can only analogize them or learn lessons about them post-1941. And that's kind of an important point, because that's precisely what we are doing, right? That's precisely what we are doing. We're trying to stop fascism from taking root to reach its worse conclusions. And for Israel, it has already reached that. Israel has already reached the concentration camp, death camp, Holocaust status. And they've done so in broad daylight, which is also crazy. Ezra Klein's essay on Hasan Piker at least comes out with the correct position, but this idea that we're dealing with a different Israel today ignores the fact that the romanticized Israel older people remember was established with the Nakba. Exactly. That's precisely what it is, right? That is the significant difference in opinion between someone like myself, an anti-Zionist, and someone like Ezra Klein, who at least is, like, more open-minded to the anti-Zionist perspective than the average liberal Zionist is, because the average liberal Zionist has completely either dropped the whole liberalism element of it and is maybe only coming back to it, like J Street is, in an effort to just, like, hold on to whatever allegiance that America could continue having with the nation state of Israel, right? But let's keep going, because this part is just one aspect of it, because he's going to, turn around and I read the whole article, Chad, I know. But to only focus on those comments is to miss much else that Piker has said and believes. He has also said, from pogroms to the Holocaust, Jews have always been singled out by those in power as a scapegoat for the instability and economic volatility that people in power caused. A resilient, nascent anti-Semitism is a constant threat. He has called anti-Semitism gross, immoral, and a hate crime. He has promoted John Ossoff, a Democratic senator from Georgia who is Jewish, as a 2028 presidential possibility. In previous presidential primaries, Piker supported Bernie Sanders, who is also Jewish. It is an unusual form of Jew hatred that calls out anti-Semitism and promotes Jewish Americans for the presidency. I have deep disagreements with Piker, but he isn't a Jew hater. He's an anti-Zionist. And here, I think, the real stakes of this fight come into view. We are living through a rupture in both the meaning and the reality of Israel. A Gallup poll from February found, for the first time, that more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians than with the Israelis. Among Democrats, the gap was overwhelming, with 65% who sympathized more with the Palestinians and 17% with the Israelis. The difference, as I have argued, is largely generational. Older Americans still view the Israelis more sympathetically, but among Americans aged 18 to 34, 53% sided with the Palestinians and 23% with the Israelis. This is new. Before 2023, young people and Democrats were more likely to side with the Israelis. This is not a result of an international psyop or a profusion of memes. The Israel that young people know is not the Israel that older people remember. Now, this gives Ezra Klein's perspective a little bit more clarity, right? Because I've been here for the last decade and a half professionally in my career as an anti-Zionist, as an open, avowed anti-Zionist, right? The old Israel is still the new Israel. The new Israel is just accelerated and is doing this in broad daylight. It's accelerated its mowing of the lawn operations. It's accelerated its domination and complete annexation of the West Bank. But those wounds continued. Those strikes continued in the old Israel. It's just that the media environment and the perception of the Western world of old Israel was the country that dominated all of the Arabs. Okay, all the pesky Arabs that got together and tried to fight the Jewish state over and over again was met with fierce resistance, right? Like that was the attitude. A lot of boomers are still on that mindset. They don't recognize Israel as an apartheid state that is conducting a genocide, that's taking over Lebanon, taking over territory in Syria, that is endlessly expanding and is a danger to all of its neighbors and to all civilians, and even a danger to its own citizens as well, if you care about that sort of thing. So that's always been the case. It's just now virtually impossible to avoid that reality, okay? For many who did not grow up with the old Israel, the only moral nation in the Middle East, the only democracy in the Middle East mentality, which was a lie, right? For many who only know Israel as the genocidaire state, who only know Israel through the arrogance that its envoys demonstrate, who only know Israel through Israel's domestic interests in the United States of America, constant demands for cancellations, constant demands for doxing people, constant demands for firing people, for turning around and saying something that a lot of people believe, saying something that a lot of people saw with their own two eyes, that Israel is a malignant actor in this region and a malignant force in American politics, right? For simply supporting Palestine, for simply supporting Palestinian sovereignty. It doesn't happen anymore. That was the first experience that many people had, and they will never change their mentality. It is never going back, right? Ezra Klein changed the Hasan opinion title 9 minutes ago. Guys, please, it doesn't fucking matter, okay? Ezra Klein has no say on the title changes, okay? Title changes are editorial decisions made by the editorial board of the opinion editorial team in the New York Times, and the title changes don't matter, okay? Let's continue. They're A/B testing different titles. We do it as well, okay? It's normal. It responded to the savagery of October 7 by flattening Gaza in a brutal campaign that killed at least 70,000 Gazans, taking control of more than half the territory, and herding Gazans, more than 2 million people, into the remainder. Life there remains hellish. Israel has made hopes of a two-state solution fanciful by slicing the West Bank up into Israeli settlements and abetting constant settler violence and keeping a boot on the throat of the Palestinian Authority. It has used the Iran war as an opportunity to launch an invasion of Lebanon, displacing more than 1 million people and announcing that as many as 600,000 won't be allowed to return to their homes until Israel decides otherwise. The Knesset just voted to legalize hanging as a punishment for Palestinians who are convicted of killing Israelis in terrorist attacks. This is, on the one hand, even the language that he uses, this is something that Ta-Nehisi Coates also pointed out. If you remember in that conversation that they had almost a year and a half ago, where Ta-Nehisi said, you always say the more militant forces on the Palestinian side are savages, but you never use similar language when you're talking about the Israeli side. The Israeli side is still a democracy, right? It still has that consideration of existing as a liberal democracy. So if it's a democratic decision that Likud is abiding by, they are simply operating on the majority's desires, okay? Yeah, he says right-wing extremists when it comes to Israelis, including the settlers. He says savagery and barbarians when it comes to Hamas, when it comes to the Palestinian resistance, right? People are still people. Those Palestinians still had dreams, had hopes, right? They had goals, just as the Israelis do. So that's something to consider. That's an implicit bias that comes out in moments like this. I'm obviously not going to lean into it too much because this stuff is far more important to have in the New York Times op-ed piece, right? Part of that racism is part of the state versus non-state dynamic that almost everyone subscribes to, even though you still hear it or don't hear it nearly the same language you hear for Hamas or Hezbollah as you do for Iran. Yes, we have obviously addressed this many times over on this broadcast. Americans have this established attitude about state versus state violence versus as opposed to state versus non-state actors and who gets to do violence and what that violence is perceived as. Israel is a nation state. Israel is a democracy. When they behave in certain ways, no matter how violent it is, no matter how unbelievably violent it is, we think of it as like an expression of democracy, of the democratic process in Israel, right? That's precisely the reason why it's very different. It's a very different calculation when you got a foreign minister who can speak to Americans, an Iranian foreign minister who can go on American television and demonstrate that, you know, he has multiple fucking PhDs. All of a sudden, Americans can hear from him. Very different attitude is developed in that process, right? That's why it's huge that Benjamin Netanyahu is from Philadelphia. Like, this is a very consequential element. I promise you, it plays a major role. That's why he does the Hebrew language proposals, and then he does the English one. And I always tell you, there's key differences in the way that he communicates to the Western world versus the way he communicates to the Israeli population, right? Anyway, third way suggests you can identify Jew haters by their use of loaded words taught in social justice seminars: apartheid, genocide, settler colonialism.